This is our analyzation of the Bay City coastal ethnography for LB 325. I am Declan Quinn.
Logan, Sloan. What is Bay City and what is it like? The city is in Michigan and it rests in the bay between the thumb and the rest of the hand. It borders Lake Huron. It's known for its recreational opportunities such as hunting, ducks, geese, etc., and fishing, notably walleye, which it's mainly known for. It's also known for aquatic recreation such as boating, sailing, paddling, kayaking, and many other things. It has diverse animal populations, and the coastline consists of factories, businesses, recreational parks, and many other things. It's very diverse. And this photo just kind of shows downtown Bay City, which lies on the Saginaw River.
Continue with our introduction. Going into the history of Bay City, it was founded in the 1850s and it primarily served to host shipyards through its founding in the 1850s through the end of the World War II. It also had a huge lumbering economy in the 1870s and going further. Around the 1900s, there was a lot of growth in industries like manufacturing, sugar beet processing, and coal extraction, as well as other industries like tourism and auto parts manufacturing, which are especially prominent today. And it is of note there has been some recent controversy revolving around Michigan Sugar Company and the enforcement of the Clean Air Act settlement, with Michigan Sugar Company being one such factory on the Saginaw Bay. As a result of the Clean Air Act settlement, Michigan Sugar Company was instructed to reduce 446 tons of volatile organic compounds and was also penalized $210,000. And then shown on the right here are some personal photos of Logan's, of which he has taken on and around the Saginaw Bay.
To continue, for our connection to Bay City and why we chose to look at it, as Declan said, my aunt, she has a place on Saginaw Bay in Bay City. That's pictured to the left, as well as we were familiar with the area prior due to our stakeholder analysis essay that we did on the Saginaw Bay. For this project, what we'll be doing is we visited Bay City and we conducted field notes and basically just recorded observations of nature, the environment, residents, inhabitants, visitors, and other things as well. And by doing this, we then analyzed our field notes using research and information about the area and curated a presentation which explained our findings, captures the experience of the Bay City coast, and answers the question, what kind of place is Bay City?
So for our first field note observations, we elected to take them on the front yard of Logan's aunt's house. Our observations are as follows. It is a calm day, wind is minimal, and the Saginaw Bay is flat as glass. The sun shines overhead, warming the water and the sand at our feet. Puffy white clouds drift overhead, blocking some of the blue sky, leaving moments of shade on the warm afternoon. The house lies about 30 yards away from the water with a retaining wall separating the sand from the green grass on the other side. Seagulls make their calls overhead, and a muskrat makes its way past the house in the water. Our interpretations are the waves are non existent due to the lack of wind present on this Sunday. The sand, warm from the sun beating down, creates a warmer feel on the beach than it is on the grass. The retaining wall that sits around 3 feet tall blocks any chance for the water to get to the house during storms and windy days. And shown on the right is a image of the front yard of Logan's aunt's house facing the Saginaw Bay.
Our second field note was the backyard of my aunt's house, and these are the observations as follows. Green grass covers an average sized yard. Pathways lead to a small porch, and a bell is centered to the middle of the yard. Seagulls continue to call overhead as they land on the top of the house and the garage. The minimal wind from the front yard is now gone completely, blocked from the house. Squirrels rustle through the trees on either side of the yard, and small yellow flowers are starting to bloom on the side of the garage. These are our interpretations for those. Spring is really starting to show its presence with the warmer weather and the green grass. Spring showers have also started to give life to the perennial flowers planted on the side of the garden and the seagulls, which are out calling with the warmth of the sun. The already calm day is ever so peaceful on this side of the house as the wind gets completely blocked by the house, leaving it even more quiet. And this is a personal photo of the backyard of my aunt's house with the bell, as explained in the observations.
Next, we decided to take field notes on a marsh on the Saginaw Bay. Our observations are the phragmites and cattails cover the shoreline of the bay. Small islands float around the shoreline made up of thick groves of phragmites and cattails. The water is still flat and the trees on the shore stand still. As the boat glides over the water, mud and seaweed are kicked up from the motor, leaving a brown trail behind us. Geese, seagulls, and other small birds take the air, making their calls. This is about the only sound present on this calm day. White fluffy clouds are still scattered in the sky, making shadowy patterns on the top of the cattails. Our interpretations are without the wind, it is a very calm day. The cattails and phragmites that have drifted off of shore are normally whistling around in the wind, but with a lack of it, they stand still. The water is still fairly cold due to the new presence of spring. The lack of wind also puts a halt on a lot of the birds flying. They are still up in the sky, but with no wind, they seem to be staying around the ground. The shallow water is what is creating the brown path that follows us through the bay. The motor kicks up mud and other things as we float through the water. Shown on the right is an image of some of the birds on the bay as taken behind some plant life on the marsh.
For our last field note, we decided to take it in downtown Bay City to show the difference between the nature part and the more human like affected area. These are observations. A light breeze moves through the downtown streets, rustling the young leaves on sidewalk trees. The hum of traffic mixes with the occasional clang of a passing freight train in the distance. Pedestrians stroll casually, some with coffee cups in hand, others walking dogs or chatting in small groups. The sun breaks through an overcast sky in scattered rays, casting long shadows from old brick buildings and line the main street. A riverboat sits docked along the Saginaw River, its red trim standing out against the gray water. The smell of roasted coffee beans drifts from a nearby cafe while bells chime softly from a church steeple a few blocks away. The interpretations for this were the combination of historic architecture and local business suggests a revitalized downtown that honors its industrial past while embracing modern, community-oriented life. The train sounds and riverboat presence hint at Bay City's history as a transportation hub. The relaxed pace of foot traffic and presence of street-level greenery add to the small town charm. Overcast skies diffuse the sunlight, giving the downtown area a calm, muted tone. This is a place that moves slower than the big cities, yet still hums with quiet life and daily rhythm. This is a picture from by Katie Boomer of just downtown Bay City, and it was close to the area that we did the field notes on.
The purpose of this following section is to look at some of the observations and insights that we observed while doing our field notes and trying to give some sort of scientific background and reasoning to them using research and literature. For our field notes on the front yard, we noticed there were no waves due to a lack of wind, and the hot sun had a greater effect on the sand temperature than the grass. We found through research that wind-driven waves are created by friction between wind and surface water in combination with the gravitational pull of the moon and sun. And we also found that the sand was so hot in part due to its high density and heat capacity, meaning that the sand takes very little energy to heat up fast, and the density stores that energy within the sand. For our backyard field notes, we found that the spring showers of prior days resulted in flower blooms. Through literature research, we found that although rain does contribute to the flower blooms, temperature plays an equally, if not more, important role.
To continue on this section, for the marsh, we noticed that there was a lack of wind, which we found correlates with a lack of birds. Birds, the presence can be affected by the wind in different ways. Too extreme of wind and wind blowing in the opposite direction of flight can discourage birds from flying, but wind blowing in the direction of birds' flight can aid in flying. With hunting experience, I've often found that when there's a very little windy day, there's a lack of birds flying, which often leads to a lack of action when it comes to the hunt. For the downtown, Bay City as a transportation hub with an industrial past still present. Bay City can be considered a transportation hub due to its water access, in addition to its highway access and public transportation services and buses. The industrial expansion of the early 1900s still can be seen in factories and buildings along the coast of Saginaw Bay to this day. This was given by research from Bay City, Michigan Advisory Council on Historic Preservation.
So, tying everything all together, in attempting to answer the question, what kind of place is Bay City? We describe the following. Our final project is a creative exploration of the relationship between humans and the natural environment in Bay City, Michigan. Through a collection of field notes, observations, and writing, we focus on the ways nature continues to exist and interact with the world around it. Our format we elected as a presentation, capturing moments that saw in our field notes to illustrate how much life and meaning can be found in a space that many people may not automatically think of natural. Today, the term nature is relatively relative and opinion based, and it's important to highlight how nature can be seen anywhere and everywhere. And it is also equally as important to recognize nature as interacting with nature makes a difference in how people view and move in the world. Overall, again, this project seeks to answer what kind of place is Bay City and what do our daily choices and attitudes say about how we value the nature that exists within it. This project holds personal significance for us, not just as students of environmental studies, but as people with deep ties to this place. Logan, as we said, has an aunt that lives on the Saginaw Bay in Bay City, and her house has become a meaningful and grounding space for their entire family. It's a place that they return to often, a peaceful escape where the quiet of the water and the call of the seagulls seems to slow time. The house represents more than just a family gathering spot. It is shaped to their understanding of what nature means in everyday life. For me, although this place might be less familiar, it's still one that encapsulates what I think makes a lot of coastal Michigan cities great, with an abundance of recreational water activities, or with an abundance of recreational activities, both on and off the water, and with a beautiful nature with a rich history. And thinking about Bay City, and thinking about Bay City as a tourist or from a perspective, connections can be made to themes present in one of our class readings regarding tourism and the lack of it during the COVID pandemic. The article illustrates a slippery slope of tourism and shares similar notions to how nature and the environment can be abused, similarly to how Michigan Sugar did to Bay City. Connections can be seen in how cities rely on tourism as a means of funding, and in the article, how that was described with an absence of that during the COVID-19 pandemic, and Bay City's robust tourism economy and the city's reliance on it, and between Bay City's contribution to negative environmental emissions, like the ones stemming from the factories, and the beneficial effects of what can happen to the environment as a whole with the reduction of these emissions, as seen as with what happened with the reductions of the emissions during the pandemic.
To continue our artist statement and answer what kind of place is Bay City, um, we continued with our field notes on downtown reveal another side of Bay City, one where nature has to work a little harder to be noticed. However, both sides and spaces are connected. Our project explores this relationship between the more wild feel of the bay and the quieter, more subtle presence of nature within the city center. It's a reflection on how human development can either harmonize with or push against the environment around it. What we as a society and people choose to do impacts the environment, either for the better or the worse. And the interconnectedness of humans, animals, and nature around us is undoubtedly present. Um, in documenting these spaces, we've come to better understand how attitudes towards nature are shaped not just by education or policy, by personal experiences like those formed at a family home on the bay. Our work reveals that Bay City is a place of intersections between past and present, industrial and nature, human and non-human. In downtown, human nature interaction is often practical. Retaining walls, trimmed trees, and paved paths show our need for control. But it's also a space of quiet coexistence. Birds still circle overhead and the river still flows, and people, whether consciously or not, live alongside nature every day. Our project encourages reflection on how we might better acknowledge, protect, and live with the nature that surrounds us, even in places we least expect it. As we depend on our environment, it depends on us. Rather than it being mutually assured, declined in well-being, it's important to nurture a mutualistic relationship. Thank you very much.